Well, I'm being joined currently by Mr. Ghassan Salamé, Minister of Culture in Lebanon, to be speaking about the unfolding situation in the Middle East as it evolves after the announcement from the American administration that the war may be drawing towards an end. Thank you very much, Mr. Salamé, for sparing your time and speaking to us here at Times Now. Now, the Americans effectively seem to have declared what looks like a definite end to the war that the United States had embarked upon in West Asia. How is Lebanon looking at all of this? And do you see this as the end after all?
We hope that the talks come to some fruitful conclusion. We are following as much as we can the talks, the exchange of papers, the exchange of ideas, the sort of episode of the Liberty Project ending. We are witnessing this with a lot of attention. While we are looking also at our own situation, we know that the situation in South Lebanon will certainly be impacted by the talks on the regional level. And therefore, we are very vigilant to try and know where Lebanon fits in the regional talks, while we are having our own talks. On the other hand, in Washington, we already had two preparatory meetings with the Israelis,
Correct.
trilateral, under the auspices of the United States. And we are expecting the United States to fix a date for a third preparatory meeting in the next week or so. So we have our own specific talks on South Lebanon, and we are aware and cognizant of the fact that the regional talks will impact the situation in our country.
Now, while you're hopeful of some kind of a resolution, does the latest announcement from the Americans also mean that the hostilities that have carried on in Lebanon, despite the ceasefire, also now come to an end, because those hostilities had continued between Israel as well as Hezbollah?
Well, this is a very serious problem. We will not move forward on substance in our talks with Israel unless the ceasefire is taken more seriously by all parties concerned. What we are witnessing is certainly a sort of de-escalation in the capital city, Beirut, and the suburbs, and to a large extent in the Bekaa Valley to the east of the country. But in the south, the ceasefire is far from being respected. In fact, new villages have been destroyed, and drones in particular are being used to hit targets across the southern part of the country, while something like a security zone is being imposed by force, in which dozens of villages have been basically erased entirely by bulldozers after being destroyed by artillery and aviation. Therefore, we would like the ceasefire to be much more effective than it has been in the past 2 weeks since it was declared, for us to be encouraged to go to any kind of talks.
Well, the Israelis, for their part, have been claiming that Hezbollah has not honored the terms of the ceasefire as well. Now, have you been able to quantify, sir, the level of damages that Lebanon has suffered in terms of life, in terms of displacement, as well as property?
Oh, very much so. In fact, the government is following this in very clear details. First, on the victims, we are approaching the 3,000 people killed in the war that started on March the 2nd. And we are close to 7,000 injured. As far as displaced people, we are close to 1 million displaced people. We probably are already over that figure. and 160,000 of them have been taken into provisional shelters, mainly in schools in cities such as Beirut, Tripoli, or Saida, while most of the displaced have gone to rent private property or to move to other parts of the country on their own. The government tries as possible to provide the displaced people with food mainly, but also with medicine and with medical care, and to offer them a shelter. And it has been also active in trying to introduce education online for their kids. So most of the government activity now is concentrated in taking care of this million displaced people, be they in provisional shelters provided by the government or in other places across the country.
But do you believe that a lasting peace is possible given the kind of circumstances that we see in the Middle East? Israel has always been of the view that Hezbollah has used Lebanese territory to essentially wage a proxy war against their country. And therefore, even during the ceasefire discussions that had been taking place in the initial days after the war had broken out, they were not very keen that Lebanon be included as part of the ceasefire, because that would disrupt Israeli operations, particularly in South Lebanon, where it's been locked in conflict with the Hezbollah.
Well, there is a lot of mistrust, certainly, between these two parties. We have witnessed many conflicts, many wars in 1982, in 2006, and again in 2024, and lately in March of this year. So there is a lot of conflictuality in the air. Plus, Israel has occupied South Lebanon for 22 years between 1978 and the year 2000, and they withdrew in 2000, but now they are reestablishing again a security zone that is entirely unacceptable to the Lebanese. Therefore, there is a lot of mistrust, there is a lot of blood spilled, and that is why Lebanon does not rule out the possibility of signing a peace treaty one day. But for the time being, we believe that what is needed is to build trust through security agreements or end of belligerency agreements or end of war status agreements that are tested over a few years before we reach a moment where trust has been established to the point of thinking of a peace treaty, as you have mentioned.
But many are also asking what the Lebanese government is actually doing to confront the Hezbollah. For example, Marco Rubio, the American Secretary of State, has said that the Israel-Lebanon peace is actually possible, but this hinges on Lebanon's own ability to confront the Hezbollah. So how is your government there working on disarming the Hezbollah?
Well, Lebanon has started addressing this issue already in August of last year by asking the army for a plan to disarm Hezbollah across the country, starting south of the Litani. As the November 27th, 2024 arrangements at the end of the penultimate war had stated. So we asked the army in August the 5th of last year to have a plan ready for that. They came with a plan and they started implementing it south of the Litani. I won't say it has been 100% implemented, but certainly a large number of arms depots, of tunnels, of arms caches have been seized by the army between September and December of 2025. Then a second phase should have addressed another part of Lebanon, north of the river Litani. But the arrival of the war led to something much more difficult that made it difficult because areas that have been vacated by Hezbollah in South Lebanon were now occupied by the Israeli army. Therefore, it was hard for the Lebanese army to keep all its positions on the border with Israel and had to withdraw instead of confronting, on the one hand, the army, on the other, the implementation of the government plan or the army plan to disarm Hezbollah. So it was a very embarrassing situation with the eruption of new hostilities in South Lebanon. However, when 6 rockets were fired at Israel on March the 2nd, the government met again and decided that military activities by Hezbollah and other armed groups would be declared illegal from now on. The implementation of this will take time. Like any disarmament process in the world, there is no disarmament process that takes less than weeks or months or sometimes years in Central America and elsewhere. And certainly the disarmament of the Hezbollah, now that it is based on clear decisions by the government, will take some time, but is rendered much more difficult to implement as long as the ceasefire is not respected in South Lebanon.
What can you tell us, sir, about the scale of Israeli ground presence in southern Lebanon at this juncture? Are you able to put a ballpark figure on the number of troops that they have there currently? And what can you also tell us about how the situation is evolving on the ground in South Lebanon?
The situation on the ground is made of a number of factors. On the one hand, there is a creeping occupation of South Lebanon for a depth of between 10 and 12 kilometers from the border with Israel. There is also, in this area that Israel calls within the yellow line, as they have called it, villages are destroyed entirely. So we have now 29 villages entirely erased and many others half or substantially destroyed. In these villages, what the Israeli army is doing is first to use drones and air force to bomb the area. Then they use artillery. Then they sometimes send commandos to explode a few still standing buildings. And at the end, bulldozers come in order to erase what is left of the built area. So this is the situation south of that so-called yellow line Israel has unilaterally drawn on the map, which is like 10 to 12 kilometers deep into the Lebanese territory. But this is one part of the story. The other part is that north of that yellow line, there is a lot of military activity. Sometimes Hezbollah fires at the Israelis or implements guerrilla warfare tactics against Israeli presence. And the Israelis also hit using their air supremacy over the Lebanese territory intensively in order to hit targets north of the yellow line and even north of the Litani River. That is why I was saying at the beginning of our conversation, the situation is quieter in Beirut and the suburbs and the eastern part of the country after days of heavy shelling of these areas. Remember, On April the 8th, the Israelis hit the capital in a very intensive way, leading to the deaths of 357 Lebanese in a matter of 10 minutes. All this has de-escalated in the past, during the past month. However, in the south, the war has never stopped. The war is going on. It's a war of occupation and destruction on the part of the Israelis, and it's some form of guerrilla warfare on the part of Hezbollah, who has sent again its militants to that part of the country.
What can you tell us about the correspondence between Lebanon and the White House? Or is there any scope anytime soon, or is this something that's happened behind the scenes of establishing some kind of a direct line of contact with Israel? What's the status on all of that?
No, we have not built that. What we are having is these preparatory meetings in Washington. We have already had already two. A third is probably scheduled for the next week or the week after. And after that, what is expected is to start the real negotiation on substance. The meetings that take place right now are meetings that are dealing with the venue, with the timing, with the level of representation, with the composition of the negotiating teams, etc., and other logistical questions. Once all this is done, we expect the proper negotiation to start on issues that separate the two countries. We certainly have a long list of items on our agenda for these negotiations. And of course, the Israelis will have their own agenda. And it will be, to a large extent, the mediators, that is the US responsibility to somehow try and reconcile the two agendas. On our side, at least, we want a clear demarcation of the border. We want, because the maritime border has been demarcated in an agreement in 2022, but not the land border. We certainly want the return of our prisoners in Israeli jails. We certainly want a full withdrawal of Israel from Lebanese territory, and certainly a non-interference commitment on their side, either on air or by sea or by land, something they have been doing in the past 50 years very, very frequently. So that's what you will find on the Lebanese agenda, what I expect the Israelis to have their own, and it will be the role of the mediator to diplomatically try and reconcile the two agendas so that the negotiations on substance could start sometime probably during this month or early in the next month.
Well, America appears to now have made its intentions clear. We see the possibility of some peace returning to the region. One just hopes that's also the case with Lebanon as well. We'll wait and see as to how things unfold there. In the meantime, many thanks, Mr. Salamé, for joining us and speaking to us and sharing your insights.